Hello, everybody. Welcome to Economics Monday. We're having a little technical difficulty getting people in. Somehow, StreamYard says they need approval from the administrator, which I'm wondering if Gwen can take a look at that because I don't see any approvals that are needed. So anyway, the thing is, we'll try to get, we have some good people showing up, assuming the thing is we don't have this technical difficulty. We have Shambhu Pokral from Nepal is supposed to be joining us, and Kanwa Mashur from Pakistan is supposed to be joining us, but we have to solve some of these technical issues before we get started. So the thing is, we are working on that. Sasha Starr has just joined us. Well, Sasha, you were able to get on.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, we had Shambhu Pokral was trying to get on, and he said he need approval from the administrator. Did you ever get a thing that says you need approval from him? Well, he's coming in from Kathmandu, Nepal.
Uh-huh. Okay, that makes a big difference.
So the thing is, I'm going like, okay, that's another little...
I think in Canada, all administrators were fired, and therefore we no longer have their services available.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is, it bothers me because we've been working with him for several years now, and he runs the Biz TV network in Nepal. And so he's pretty big up in Nepal. He meets with all the ambassadors and prime ministers from all over the world. And we got to know a little bit more about Nepal. It has a very young population, which is now quite large. They have 30 million people, 32 million. So I guess the population is about the size of Canada. You know?
Exactly.
But just because they have a nice sized population doesn't mean I can get them. As you know, getting them through the IBM TV network, it can be challenging. Rakesh, good to have you on board. Did you have any problems with the administrator getting on our show?
No, no problem.
Okay, I have two people who are going to join us. One is Shambhu Pokral from Kathmandu, and he texted me. He goes, he was denied by the administrator, whoever that might be, to get on our show. He goes, and I go, well, try again. I mean, I don't know what to say. He goes, I logged in but didn't get approval from the administrator. And I said, time I sent, okay, I'll tell him we are starting now. Oh, wait, maybe he's on at yeah, we're starting now. It's 11 o'clock. Okay. I'll just let him know we are on now.
Are we in the air?
Yeah, we're on the air. The thing is that the problem is he's having some problems over in getting through Kathmandu over to here, and then we're going to have Kanwa Mashur from Karachi is also going to be joining us today. But as you know, Sasha, getting people from certain countries into the IBM TV network can be challenging. Now, you say you have a Russian grandmaster who's going to join us?
Yeah, this Saturday I will try for one more time to get Russian grandmaster. Murtas Kashgariev. Actually, he's not so much from Russia as from Kazakhstan, but he lives in Moscow, and of course he's involved in chess life in Russia, and it will be quite interesting to have him on a program, and I hope it will work technically because I a couple of times had difficult times there. And
no, I mean, I've seen that problem. In certain countries we've had not too many of them, but in the African countries, our biggest problem is bandwidth. Okay, the thing is,
that's technical problem. In Russia, it's not technical problem. It's a problem that when you're trying to get on StreamYard, and you have to answer several questions: who you are, where you live, where you were born, what's your education, where your parents were born, and what they were doing, and what is your bank account, and what's the balance of your bank account, and so on. So it's quite uncomfortable situation. Some people go through all that.
Yeah, I had to do that when I went to Russia.
Oh, you have
On the visa application in Russia, they ask me all
Yeah.
those questions you just describing. In other words,
Exactly.
they want to know your history, your bank accounts, and can you find it? But the thing is, before I went, I had everything paid for, so
Right.
I didn't have to.
I think Russians are a very good student. For example, in Canada and of course United States, financial industries, the first rule is know your client, right?
Right.
So in this case, Russians want to know their clients.
Sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. What they don't want is bring somebody in that could be an issue that they have to
Sure.
deal with a problem. But
Yeah, they don't want to have some deplorables there or so on. So
yeah,
they're trying
deplorable. Right.
to make sure that all legitimate
Right.
people will have
Right.
access.
Yeah. I don't think they would
Yeah.
like a bunch of people in the what do they have in the Red Square? Um, bantering about trying to overthrow the government. I guess they did that a long time ago, but that was like in 1918 or 1917 or something like that. But I don't think they'd look very favorably on that today. So yeah, harmony in Red Square. Let's put it that way.
Do you remember? It was. I think it was 1987, probably. Yeah, when one young German, he was 23 years old, I think. He was flying the
Small aircraft.
small aircraft. Yeah, it was very small aircraft for one person, and he flew all the way and landed on the Red Square in
Right.
Moscow.
I remember that. Yeah.
And Russians, you know what? It took them a while to figure out what to do with him because they couldn't try him because he was not a Russian citizen, right?
Right.
So at the same time, he did some kind of a criminal activity for all purposes. But I think they dismissed him at the end of the day. I think they put him in jail for a few days and then
and then they extradited him.
Germany extradited.
Right. Yeah, and sent him back to Germany or wherever he came from. Yeah, and he was kind of a little bit off because I don't think that would be my cup of tea to fly a plane in Red Square, unannounced, not invited, just randomly doing that. But that's just me.
And
So
I'm not even sure that he saved a lot of money compared to buy just a ticket to fly to Moscow.
Yeah.
But maybe he didn't have visa and he decided to fly without visa anyway.
Right. That is absolutely true. Well, hopefully Shambu will be able to join us. Like I said, for those who don't know him, he's been on our network before. He runs the Biz TV network in Kathmandu, Nepal, and introduced us to what's going on in Nepal, which is a growing country with a lot of young people. Most of their population is young. They have 32 million people. That shocked me. I didn't know it was that big. I think they have more people than Canada does, Sasha. I mean, that's a huge population for a country that is basically in the Himalayas, So they do that, and they're bordered between India and China. So his claim to fame was, well, we're the place where the Indians and the Chinese meet, in Nepal.
Right.
And that can be good for the economy and also could be challenging for the economy. But I thought that's very interesting. And then Kanwar Mashur is supposed to join us from Karachi, Pakistan. We haven't had a lot of participation in Pakistan. He's participated a little bit with us, but not a lot. He'd run the Startup Pakistan group. And for those who don't know that, they had a big startup, and he's trying to push the tech community in Pakistan to move the country forward. And Pakistan's a pretty big country. They have about 175 million people. I mean, as many people as Japan, maybe even more now. I mean, they're a huge country. They're bigger than Nigeria, pushing close to 200 million people. And what he's trying to do is get the people in Pakistan and the government to move more toward the tech sector and create Pakistan to be a tech front. But as we well know, just because that's something that you want to do doesn't mean that's what the government wants to do, So, and we do know that there's various different initiatives depending on what country you're in. I don't think New Zealand, where you're at, Rakesh, has any initiative at all. I think it's initiative as to be a retirement center or something like that. Do they have any initiative? I mean, I know you're a progressive country over there, but do they have an initiative at all, or is everybody just retired looking at the tourism business over there?
Tourism is a major business. They are, of course, milk and beef and things like that. I don't know of any because I've just come in for 2 months now. I'm not totally clued in on the economic drives, but I think that the focus is still on tourism.
Okay, yeah, and you have a female prime minister over in New Zealand, and she's very progressive. I tried to get her on our show, and I corresponded with her staffers before, but the response was they're too busy fighting COVID-19. Okay, now they should be done with the fight on COVID-19 because I think they won the battle. Would that be correct, Rakesh?
Yeah, that is correct. They
Okay.
pretty much.
All right. So, now here's something I'm very curious. Since they don't really have many, if any, COVID-19 deaths or even infections on New Zealand, is there an initiative to vaccinate the population, or are they going to say,
Oh, yes,
why bother?
everybody is going to receive a free vaccine.
Oh, okay.
Everybody,
So they're going to vaccinate the population.
100%.
Okay. And by the way, that initiative is taking place here in the United States, which, like, if we don't get rid of this stupid disease that we have here, my math shows we'll have 1.5 million people die. Not 200,000, but 1.5 million, because that's what we're targeting right now if we don't get this under control. That's 1.5 million just in the United States. So the vaccine has become very important, and Uncle Joe has decided to release all the vaccines that, as they make it, out the door it goes. So they're moving very fast to inoculate. Now, what is it in Canada, Sasha? What is the status of COVID-19 over there in Canada?
I don't know. Lately, it was a very disappointing situation because it still keeps spreading, not to degrees that it happens in US, for example, but still it is spreading. So in Ontario, we now have complete lockdown, just lockdown period, full stop. There are heavy enforcement of that through policing, streets. For example, if you can go anywhere, you have to have a paper with you that either you're essential worker or that you are the only one in family going to buy some food, drinks, and so on. The biggest lineups are, as usual, in liquor stores. As you know, in Ontario, the liquor is being sold in government stores. You cannot buy it elsewhere.
Is that the vaccine that they're using in Canada? Is liquor? Is that what you're saying?
Well, by the time that all of us will be vaccinated, we might as well have some drinks.
So what they're doing is they're actually setting up the vaccines in the liquor stores.
Well, they should have. They should have. But, well, it's a little bit more complicated because it has to be injected, and not all people in liquor stores know how to do it.
I'll drink to that.
You would have to train them probably to provide these treatments. But so far, I don't know. In Russia, it works very well. They drink vodka and then have some beer and then more vodka. So that works. Yeah, that
Steve, that's how you get along with the Russians. They like vodka, ballet, and chess, not necessarily in that order. You know, but if you head that direction, you're really in good shape. Now, Steve, in the United States, though, the U.S. is basically, I didn't get my Wall Street Journal today. The U.S. is basically has a holiday. Is that correct? And could you tell the world a little bit about the holiday that's going on here in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. And I've got to leave around 11:30, but I wanted to just wish everyone a happy Martin Luther King Day. So this is the day in America, United States, where we celebrate the life and legacy of the late Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who was inspired by Mohandas K. Gandhi for the doctrine of civil disobedience, or satyagraha, and he brought it to the United States. And through sit-ins and protests, and eventually would lead up to the March on Washington, where he gave the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. But those of you who have Netflix, there's a famous movie called Selma, and that was really the greatest moment where they took a march in Selma, Alabama, to fight, at that time, Governor George Wallace, and fight segregation. Some of the results of MLK's life, he was shot in 1968, and one of his proteges was John Lewis, who passed away this year, the late U.S. congressman, who reminded us to get in necessary trouble. Andrew Young, the former mayor of Atlanta, and then eventually UN ambassador to, I think it was I can't remember which president, but he served in the nation, and a number of different people, Jesse Jackson. All of these were disciples of Dr. King. And Floyd McKissick Sr., who actually his son was a longtime state senator in North Carolina, who I interviewed a few days ago on another show. His father was a civil rights leader with Dr. King. But the Voting Rights Act was also big. I'll just end with that, Nick, that Dr. King worked with President Lyndon Johnson to convince him to propose voting rights legislation, which at that time was unheard of. And Johnson did it, and the rest is history. So I could go on, but at the end of the day, it's a great day for America and the world to celebrate this great life, particularly now amidst all this racial division and turmoil we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we've been talking about Shambhu Pokral, and he has arrived now from Kathmandu, and we're so grateful to have him here. I'm going to give a brief introduction, then he can do the other introduction. Shambhu is actually in Kathmandu, Nepal, which has a population of over 30 million people. The country of Nepal, by the way, not Kathmandu. And he does the Biz TV network in Nepal, and he can update us on what's more going on in Nepal, but I'm glad to have you here, Shambhu. Just to let you know, our audience, we have Sasha Starr is from Canada, Rakesh is from New Zealand, Steve is from the United States of America, and Banerjee runs Swiss Impact Investment Association in Switzerland. So Shambhu, since you've been on before, but it's been a while, tell the audience a little about who you are and what you do.
Hello, good morning, friends. I think good morning, good evening, getting to the time zone.
That's correct. You got that right.
Yeah, this is Shambhu from Nepal, but we are a global citizen, not only in Kathmandu or in Nepal or in Asia, but we are a global citizen. According to the time zone and according to the business time, we are doing business around the globe. Okay. I am the chairman of World Trade Group Nepal, and I obviously own one satellite television called Business Television. By the side, I have some global like CEO Club Global, and I am also engaged in the IT sector, so Black Hole IT. We are currently serving in 30 countries, and in CEO Club Global, we are serving in 100 countries. So we are global in business. Though I am currently residing in Kathmandu due to this pandemic, but half of the time I'll be in sky. So we are doing something. And if you ask the economy of the country right now, particularly in Nepal, Nepal is also the victim of this pandemic. It's a global pandemic. So tourism sector is badly hit here, and some manufacturing sector is also affected. But whole economic chain, the ecosystem is disturbed now. But we are still hoping that it will be recovered with a strong hunger created by this pandemic, and we can say the people is staying inside the home. So they are thinking and they are planning now to move faster way in coming days. Let's hope.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you meet a lot of dignitaries in your city, don't you, Shambhu?
Pardon?
You meet a lot of very important people in your city, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, every people has their role.
I have a long-standing relationship with Nepalese community. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Very good.
Yes. And Ben, tell the audience a little bit about who you are. I know you have a new show called Swiss Impact. By the way, it was a great show the other day. I watched the whole thing. It was pretty good. So tell us a little bit about the Swiss Impact Investment Association and your show Swiss Impact on the IBM TV network.
Okay, so I created this organization quite many years ago. So we are quite a global band on the field of impact investment. We have two purposes. One is to increase the awareness of impact investment worldwide, and second is to be a kind of platform where investors and businesses and service providers can all meet. We have four kind of members, starting from institutional investment funds like Norwegian Sovereign Fund, many pension funds and everything, including high net worth individuals, banks, family offices, wealth managers, and last of all, Faith Invest. So a lot of religious organizations who are investing. And impact investment, for those who don't know, that means investments in the field which is good. It's normal investment, but which is good for the society or for the environment. And this show we started last week, Friday, which just now Nick mentioned he was there. So we had the show together with MAPS, that's the Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary. This Friday, coming Friday, it was with EIB, that's the European Investment Bank, which is one of the biggest banks in the world. So they have put together, they have just now planned an investment of 1.2 trillion for climate change. It's based out of, it's the Bank of European Union. The week after that is the president of Mauritius, and after that it's the head of the Faith Invest. So we already have a couple of weeks planned and booked, and then there will be. So we will be interviewing a lot of world leaders, policymakers, academics, Nobel Prize winners, on the topic of impact investment, sustainable investment. So that's basically in short what we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and last week you had somebody on climate change, and Shampoo, since you're in Kathmandu, in Nepal, have you guys experienced climate change or warming in the Himalayas? Have you seen that at all?
Yes, climate change is prevalent now because if we say at this time or in this some 2 or 3 months, Himalayas actually would have covered by whole snow, but now some black spots being observed in the Himalayas, in the mountains, means the climate change has made less of impact, and global warming also causing some difficulties in the Himalayan regions. And other thing is, due to this, there is a chance of glaciers being small in size, and one day they will be extincted.
Yeah, because I have to go visit you pretty shortly and look at Mount Everest before there's no glaciers on Mount Everest. I mean, that would be like awful, wouldn't it? You go there and there's no glaciers there. So, Steve, it looks like you have your Nepalese hat on. Tell us a little bit about.
Yes. So first of all, I got to leave in a couple minutes, but I am a really long-time friend of the Nepalese community in North Carolina. Their actually tagline is "First in Flight," and we worked together to rebuild Nepal during the earthquake by raising money and bringing awareness. I had the honor of having a relationship with the current ambassador to the United States from Nepal, Ambassador Karki, and being in Morrisville, it's amazing. One day he's driving back to Washington. He goes, "Hey, let's go meet for coffee." So I got to meet an actual ambassador, and so they gave me this Nepal hat. So I just wanted to wish you, and I know Pokarol is a very common Nepali name, and my favorite food is moma, which is the Nepalese dumpling kind of thing. And there's a lot of similarities between Nepal and Indian food, and during COVID, I really missed. The other thing, we have a Nepal Day where we celebrate Nepalese community here in North Carolina. So, Shambhu, thank you so much. And I just had to wear my hat. I don't get to don this very much during the COVID time, but thank you. And I'll just end with this before I leave, Nick. Maybe the thing you could talk about, just 72 hours left before you swear in the new president. What's going to happen with the trial? And is Biden going to get the $1.9 trillion continued stimulus investment? And how are we going to pay for it? Which my dad asked me last night, and I did not have an answer for him. I go, "Dad, I don't know, but it's coming, depending whether we remove this president." I threw out a lot out there, but
Right, you did. But the thing is, I think we can address all those because I do have some predictions on all those that you just described, Steve. But it's great to have the people from Nepal. And I didn't know that we had a Nepal Day here in Raleigh. Okay, Shambhu.
In Morrisville.
In Morrisville, yeah, but that's like real close. That's right. That's a suburb really of Raleigh. So the thing is,
well, nobody knows the real story. So
there's a story behind it.
Okay, yeah, this is a story. And
okay,
I guess.
I didn't know
this
there was
is going to be very interesting. So what
actually we are always having the party. We are always
let me tell you
having
really quickly what happened.
Okay.
So what happened was that there was a prime minister in Nepal by the last name Nepal, a former prime minister, and he came to Morrisville. At that time, I was the mayor pro tem, And the mayor of that, who's a good friend of mine, Mark Stolman, we're at this Nepali American's house named Rabin Karki. And during a tea and meeting this former prime minister, the Stolman, who's a very witty guy, he was a Republican, I was a Democrat, but we had a great relationship. He said, this is such wonderful to be celebrating this great Nepal Day right here in Mooresville. And someone misunderstood him and they thought that they were going to start a Nepal Day. And so they ended up calling the fire. And next thing you know, we have a Nepal Day because of that one statement. So I'm getting up there.
Wow.
We had like 4,000 people there the first
Right.
year.
Yeah.
Mayor
Wow.
looked at me and he goes, I just said that it was Nepal Day because we were meeting the Prime Minister of Nepal. But now it's worked out great. So sometimes in life, you don't know what happened. But yeah, we had a lot of people there from all around the state, actually. And the Nepalese news came. And I've spoken to but I want to go to Nepal. And I'm just hoping that Joe Biden can make me. If President Biden, if you can make me ambassador to Nepal, my wife said she'll move with me and come to Kathmandu.
Okay, I am ready to pick you up from the airport.
So anyway.
Hey, Steve, when you go, I'll get a plane ticket and go over there. That's on my list to go to Kathmandu.
I am ready to welcome you here in Kathmandu.
Yeah, you're going to be invaded by all these IBM TVers.
But sometimes I think that flight to Kathmandu may be just what the doctor ordered right now.
Well, I'm pretty close to visiting Ben and
manage time. Here, startup World Cup Nepal edition is going to happen in 2nd of March. So if you can join, we would like to welcome you. Startup World Cup Nepal edition.
Okay. Yeah, please. Can you email me? I'll come.
Sure. I'll send you. So I think you can communicate in a group chat. There is email. Otherwise, you will see.
Or you just email me, Shambhu. I'll forward it on to Steve because he runs our other TV show called World Edition, which goes on right before. So I'm in constant contact with Steve. So just go ahead and email. I'll forward it and get your emails hooked up and see if we can get that thing taken care of.
Folks, thank you so much. I got to go.
Thank you, Steve. Steve has to do his politician work. He's actually
and I got a job. I got to pay the bills. So
I understand that.
I got to put food on the table. But I am so honored to be with IBM TV. Long live Nepal. Long live United States. And lots to talk about the next 72 hours as we swear in the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. Much to come tomorrow.
Yes, right. Yeah, we're going a different direction, as they would say in sports, with our politicians. So
there you go. The moving vans are on their way.
Yeah, right. Actually, Amazon is going to move him very shortly. They're going to pick him up and move him out. I think he's going to be gone tomorrow. He's going to take his plane and head to there, which will hopefully opens up better relationships internationally. And that's what I'm seeing that's going to happen here in the United States. Also, I believe they're actually going to pass that stimulus bill, that $2 trillion stimulus bill. But here's my prediction also, and this is a wild one, that Joe Biden will actually pardon Donald Trump.
I think he will too.
To remove the whole thing out of his space so he can do things that we need here, which is actually to get rid of the COVID-19 issue. I mean, that's a big one here. I don't know about you, Shambhu. In Nepal, are you guys having COVID-19 issues over there in Nepal, Shambhu?
Of course, it's a global pandemic, and there is no chance that Nepal is not having that issue. But the mortality rate is very less in comparison to other countries of the same affected number. But we have obviously the pandemic effect is here.
Wow. Okay, so the thing is, it's worldwide. What about the vaccine? They're just starting to roll out vaccines here in the United States. It's a big push to get vaccinated. Are you guys getting vaccinated? Are there vaccines over there?
Yeah, obviously, who makes vaccines? First priority is their country, their people themselves. But we are about to get the vaccine. Most probably within 2 weeks, we'll have that access to vaccines. To I think the priority will be set by government as per age or risk factor. But within 2 weeks, we are going to get vaccine.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'll let you guys go. But Nick, I mean, that was a really great wrap up of all the things that we're facing. That's my prediction too. I think President Biden will pardon Trump.
Right.
And I think more to come.
So we're on the same page here, and of course I'm going to do some quick introductions because we've been joined by the Honorable David M. Walker. David was the former Comptroller General of the United States of America. So with us on the panel we have Sasha Starr, who is out of Canada, who runs our show Chess Stars Investing with Sasha. Rakesh, who is Science and Math out of New Zealand. Ben Banerjee is the chair and president of the Swiss Impact Investment Association in Switzerland. So he's in Zug. Steve is actually a council member in Morrisville, which is basically in the Raleigh-Durham area. And Shambhu Pokharel has just joined us from Kathmandu, Nepal, and he is the CEO of Club Global and works internationally, although right now he's kind of limited into Kathmandu, but works with all the prime ministers and dignitaries throughout. And the Honorable David Walker was the Comptroller General of the United States for 15 years and head of the General Accounting Officer, and now teaches at the U.S. Naval Academy. David, welcome to the show. And Steve asked me a very good question. I said, yes, I believe they're going to pass the $2 trillion stimulus, 1.9 trillion. But then he asked me a tough question, which I'm not going to answer yet. How are we going to pay for that? In other words, how's that going to be paid for?
My dad asked me that last night, David.
And so I'm glad that David has joined it, because maybe he can help us out. Okay, we know how to spend $2 trillion, but how are we going to pay for it?
First, just to clarify, I had a 15-year appointment as Comptroller General of the United States, but I served about 10. We don't have indentured servitude in America, at least now we don't. And so as a result, I left after 10, after I'd accomplished everything that I thought that I could. And look, we're not going to pay for it. The answer is we're charging it to the credit card. And, what's going to end up happening after we end up seeing a transition in power is the first priority is going to be COVID-19 and the stimulus. But we're also going to see, as we look forward, more spending, higher taxes, more regulation, looser borders, tougher environmental laws, another round of healthcare reform, additional infrastructure investment. We're probably going to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Climate Accords. That's just a few of the things. So there will be dramatic fundamental changes. We are going to move more towards multilateralism, which I think makes sense. The United States can't go alone in the world. We're not where we were at the end of World War II. We need more multilateral cooperation. I think the real question is that what's going to happen with regard to our relations to certain key players in the world, in particular with regard to China. But again, the bottom line is we're not going to pay for it. We're going to charge it to the credit card. And my concern is, before COVID-19, we were on an unsustainable fiscal path. It's much worse now. And even with all the things that I just said, we're getting worse rather than better. And so I think what we need is to do what we have to do to defeat COVID-19, and we will. But we need to recognize that we are on that improved and unsustainable path, and we're going to need a statutory commission to engage the American people with the facts, the truth, the tough choices, to make recommendations to Congress for them to vote on, to take a tough vote.
David, thank you so much. I have to leave in a few minutes, but what would your advice then be to, you've given us a lot of information, but what would be your advice then to President Biden now in the first 100 days of administration? The one advantage is he does have relationships across the aisle. How does do you look at this as an opportunity for him to get us focused back on issues that we can have more bipartisan support so that we move America forward?
Yes, if he's willing to compromise. Let me give an example. With regard to the stimulus bill, we're going to have another round of stimulus, but it needs to be properly targeted.
Yeah.
We're going to give another $1,400. My view is that you ought to raise, you ought to change the eligibility requirements before, if individuals made up to 75,000, households up to 150,000, you could get $2,000. That's too high. It needs to be much lower than that for the additional 1,400. In addition, the states and municipalities need some additional assistance for direct expenses associated with COVID-19, not to bail out their unfunded pension and retiree health care plans.
Thank you.
If he, as long as he does it in a way that is reasonable and targeted, I think he can get some bipartisan cooperation.
Thank you so much. That's an excellent answer, and it's such an honor to have someone with such experience provide us some guidance on what may happen. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And so the thing is, since we're not going to pay for it, at least we're not going to pay it in the near future, David, what if any are we going to do with this nearly $30 trillion worth of debt that exists in the United States?
Well, we're not going to do anything unless we set up a special mechanism along the lines of what I talked about that recognizes that we need to make some tough choices with regard to revenues, social insurance programs, and spending. Those choices have to be phased in over time, all with the objective of trying to get debt to GDP down to a reasonable and sustainable level within the next 20 years. That's what we need to do, okay? And I and others are trying to help make sure that does get done. You know, we had something in the United States in 2010 called the Simpson-Bowles Commission. And it was not a statutory commission. It was not created by law, so there wasn't buy-in the Congress and the president up front. It did not engage the American people outside the Beltway to get their input and help, show the burning platform. It did not have an automatic vote on its recommendations. It was abandoned by President Obama, unfortunately. So as a result, nothing really happened. We need to learn from that and put a mechanism in place that learns the lessons from that will engage the American people, that'll have everything on the table, that will have an automatic vote. And that's the way that we can solve the problem. The idea that we're going to end up doing this through the regular order or through the regular legislative order is mindless. That's just not going to happen.
Well, why did the media not pick up on the Simpson-Bowles Commission? Why was that thrown in the toilet when it seems to me that something like that is really necessary in the United States if we're going to have any chance to not become another Italy? And I did hear that our GDP ratio is going to be like that of Italy, maybe worse, or Greece. And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the European Commission put a little kibosh on Italy, Spain, and Greece for exceeding those GDP to debt ratios? Ben?
Yes, they did, but didn't make much difference because I'm myself quite against to the rules and regulations that European Union tried to enforce on Greece, because if you look at the result of it, it put Greece in a far worse situation to begin with than before the regulations were implemented. So Greece did not come out very well from that. And whatever Greece achieved or whatever Greece improved on has very little to do with the strong regulations that was implemented by the European Union on them. So I'm not always in favor of strict financial regulations, because if it has a long history to go. Greece joined the EU anyway from the first point with kind of how do you call it? How should you politically say it correctly? With a kind of it's not real accounting, but a kind of imaginary accounting. I don't know the
creative accounting.
Creative accounting.
Creative accounting.
Exactly. So Greece
in the negative sense. In the negative sense.
Exactly. So that's how they joined the EU. And to make the situation worse, the EU was already aware of it. And by EU, I mean the European EU Commission. They were aware of it, but they were in such a hurry to get Greece into the European Union that they kind of overlooked purposely. So Greece already came in with a massive financial issue, and you cannot have, like in US, you have one currency, but you also have one federal institution. In Europe, we do not have such a financial institution. So you cannot have one currency for completely different financial cultures or financial nationalities. And that completely disrupted the whole thing. So my proposal was, because I also spoke on the Greece Parliament, this was many years back, that if Greece would have left the euro, then they would have had the option to go back to their dracha and devaluate it, and in the process they would get their exports will go up, their import will come down, and they will somehow try to find the balance. But since they did not have that option, they were forced to stay inside inside the euro. They didn't have much choice. They completely had no choice. So from one day to another, their taxes went like crazy. They were paying 60, 70%, sometimes even 80% taxes. Their income collapsed. Their market collapsed. People could not buy anything. So Greece started a kind of alternative, and Greece historically has experience with it, especially from the Second World War time. They started an alternative economy. So that means instead of the economy of the euros that is going on, they started doing barter system and their own currency system. So the villages were doing their own thing. And in the bank, I have a lot of friends there, their accounts were all frozen because the government had such a massive currency default that anybody above a certain amount of money, people who had 10 million, 15 million, all accounts frozen. They could take out maximum 1,000 per week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So a lot of these kind of hardships were implemented, which was quite unnecessary to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it did anything good.
I think we need to remember that Greece once used to be one of the greatest civilizations on earth.
Exactly. Yeah, they're the start of European democracy.
Right. I mean, it was, okay? And now look at where Greece is. I think we also have to recognize the United States as a sovereign nation. It's not part of a currency union. The U.S. dollar is under pressure. I mean, just within the last 48 hours, I've seen articles about how the European nations are trying to take steps to lessen the influence of the dollar on global trade and sanctions and things of that nature. That's one of the things I talk about in my book. I mean, we need to recognize reality that the status quo is unacceptable and unsustainable. On Simpson Bowles, by the way, President Obama abandoned the commission. About 85% of their recommendations made sense and should be seriously considered.
Right.
But if the president doesn't buy in, and that's why you need a statutory process.
Yeah.
You don't engage the American people and get them engaged in this. It can't be an inside so-called the Beltway solution.
Right.
You have to engage the American people. And if you don't have a guaranteed vote, you're not going to be successful. And even if you have all of that, that's not guaranteed. But the odds that you will be successful are much, much better.
Right. Yeah. And Ben, you're having the head of the European Investment on your show Friday?
European Investment Bank.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Bank of the European Union.
And he's going to be on IBM TV this Friday, right? She. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about my stupid me.
He's just trying to be gender neutral.
No, he's trying to be correct. Shambhu, we know that the coronavirus exists in Nepal, but what about, I never hear about you guys having economic problems like the high debt to GDP ratio in Nepal. Shambhu, is that an issue over there in Nepal, or is that not an issue?
Of course, it is supposed to be our growth rate 0.2%. Last year it was some 6.5, and the day before that, so the year before that was 7.5. Means the economic situation is almost deteriorating. But what we are hoping is within the next year, the growth rate will again jump to more than 6% here in Nepal.
Wow. Okay. Well, see, we're not experiencing that 6% growth rate here in the United States. I believe we're like less than 3%. And Don Pendleton has just joined us from Utah. He heads up the Wealth Creation and Asset Protection Summit, which is taking place, I believe, in next month. Right, Don? Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Right, February 22nd through the 24th, and thanks, and I appreciate. I've kind of listened in the background. What a great group you've put together, Nick. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do, I don't know if I can summarize it in just a quick little paragraph. We take legal issues like taxes, which is very complicated, estate planning, and asset protection, and we break it down so that the average business owner, the average person, can go, what are some simple solutions I can do to reduce my taxes without trying to make junior attorneys out of everybody to go save the world. People want to be involved in the decision-making process. it's easy to say, just do my taxes, do my legal work. But in the end, they really want to know what's going on, because nobody's going to be more interested in their money than they are. And so, but they don't have a law degree, and sometimes the attorneys make it so overwhelming and so complex that the average person doesn't understand it. I think what we bring to the table more than anybody is just the ability to connect with the average individual, explain legal concepts so that they can make informed decisions. Nick, you've been to our classes. You know what we do, and we appreciate your support over the years.
Mhm.
But that's what we do. And so if they're interested, any of your listeners, we've made that very attractive in that we're bringing some of the best attorneys and presenters in the nation, but we don't charge for it. You're welcome to attend. They can go to protectwealth.com and sign up for that. Let them know that they're coming from IBM TV, and we waive your tuition.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah, that's good to take place. But also, David, because I've been to his wealth preservation seminar, and it seems to me people are very interested in how they can help themselves. But when you're talking about the U.S. economy, in other words, the U.S. debt, why people aren't interested? In other words, how does it affect me? In other words, how can you get people motivated to even adopt or look at Simpson Bowles?
Well, first you have to tell people the truth. I mean, most of the politicians don't tell people the truth, no matter what political party they're associated with. They're acting like we don't have a problem. And the reason that they're acting like we don't have a problem is because we're facing a coronavirus crisis right now. We have serious economic problems. We still have too high of unemployment right now. You have some people out there advocating this new modern monetary theory, which says that deficits and debt don't matter as long as you don't have an inflation problem. Interest rates are very low right now. Savers are being penalized at historic low rates. And so therefore people say, well, right now interest rates are low, so let's load up the debt. It's not going to be that big a problem. What they forget about is history, the laws of economics, the fact that if you end up doing too much, then interest rates will go up. If you end up doing too much on the monetary side, the dollar will go down, and that's what they're living for today. So the first thing you have to do is you have to tell the people the truth. And in 2012, I did a 27-state, 10,000-mile national fiscal responsibility bus tour that was truth-telling. It got a lot of coverage back in the public back then. The concern about deficits and debt was much, much higher than it is right now. And people have to understand what the adverse consequences are to the country, to them, to their families, and to future generations if we don't change course. So you have to build that so-called burning platform. And then after you build the burning platform, you have to engage them, as was just mentioned with regard to financial planning. You have to engage them, seek their input as to what ought to be done, in a fair and equitable way, and then provide a mechanism that can increase the likelihood that it will actually get done.
Yeah, and then
process matters. Process matters a lot.
Right. Yeah, and see, Simpson Bowles, it seems to me, the whole concept of Simpson Bowles and creating a fiscally responsible government just got pushed aside like it's nothing. Is there any possibility that the United States in this new administration revisits Simpson Bowles? Because I don't see how we're ever going to get out of this long-term debt effect in the United States if we don't really take it seriously, David.
Well, Simpson Bowles is over. And as I told you, while they did good work, and I think about 85% of the recommendations are worth considering again, they did certain things that frankly should not be repeated. First, they didn't engage the American people in a meaningful way up front. It was an inside the beltway exercise. All right. That's not the way to do it. Okay. Secondly, they named it Simpson Bowles. You don't want to do that. Okay. You're trying to get 535 politicians, each with pretty big egos, each of which they want to be able to say, they had some of their ideas in there. And so you don't want to have your name on it. I mean, for example, when I talk about that tour that was done in 2012, my name was nowhere on the bus, nowhere on the materials, okay? Because it's not about the person, it's about the country, it's about all of us combined. So, and as I said, there was no guaranteed vote, and the president abandoned them. The president abandoned them.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Joe Biden is not likely to seek re-election because of his age. Okay. And because of that fact, I think that he has a unique opportunity to be able to do something along the lines of what I'm talking about. And he does have a history of trying to work on a bipartisan basis, as long as the proposals are reasoned and reasonable. The difficulty is the energy in his party is far to the left of the general public in the United States, just like the energy in the Republican Party is to the right of a majority of the people in the United States. The sensible center is where the solutions are, and that's why you have to engage a broad cross-section of the American people, because now in the U.S., we have a republic that's not representative of nor responsive to the general public. Too many right-wingers, too many left-wingers, not enough people that represent a significant majority of the American people. And that's where the solutions lie.
Right.
Can I ask a question, Dave? In EU, we have sort of solved this issue in a way. So we have the EU Commission that makes the financial laws, financial everything. We have the EU Parliament, which are politicians. EU Commission are not politicians. They are doing which is maybe a little bit different than in US, because you have the same body doing it. Here we have separate bodies. But if you look at EU Commission, they started with the QE, the quantitative easing. They have been flooding the market with, I don't know, some fancy amount of 80 billion or 100 billion per month or something, buying up toilet paper. In fact, the papers they're buying up is worth less than toilet paper. But somehow, despite of doing this for year after year after year, the inflation is still quite very low, relatively. How do you explain that? Because if you look at it, the original economic theory, I'm not an economist, but my theory would be if you keep on flooding the market with new printed money, years after years in a massive amount, at a certain moment, you're going to head up into inflation. Why don't we have that?
Well, in part because we've had higher unemployment, we've had lower economic growth, we've had less velocity of money. Okay, there's a lot of it. Those are some of the reasons why we don't have it. I think once we end up defeating the coronavirus, once we end up getting the economy going again, once we end up seeing the pent-up demand on behalf of consumers, it's going to be a different ballgame. So today, we don't have to worry about it today. But we just can't live for today. We have to learn from history, learn from others, and plan to help create a better tomorrow. And that's the frustration.
Yeah. But that's a hard thing for people to do, David. In other words, like it's so much easier to just put it on the credit card, kick the can down the road, and go to the football game on the credit card than to actually look at the long-term debt of the United States and have to solve it. The other problem that we've seen, and this is just a beef of mine with the media industry, is that back 20 years ago in the United States of America, we had 50 companies, 50 companies, that controlled about 90% of everything we watched and read. Today, we have 6 companies that control 90% of what we watch and read. And so even if you, like you said, you've got to convince the American public. Well, you got to convince the 6 major media networks first that this is important. And if they believe it's not important, then you go nowhere.
Well, and they've also started getting into the censor business.
Oh yeah, right. Well,
there's
that's true too.
And there's no question that eventually we're going to see some legislation on that.
Right.
My personal view is that if you want to be in the censor business, then you should be subject to suit if you abuse that. Okay. And there are certain things that they ought to. Okay. I mean, when people are advocating violence or whatever else, I don't have any patience for that. But when you're saying that there are certain groups or certain individuals that across the board, no matter what they say, you can't you can't be on the platform, my personal view is that's going too far.
Right. And in this latest round, Section 230 basically makes us immune from liability for whatever's said and done. Before we were running a 3-second delay, we're neurotic about anybody who gets on the IBM TV network, and we're concerned about lawsuits. Don, you'll love this one. Okay. We've had discussions with this all the time at the IBM TV network. What happens if somebody says something they shouldn't say? It gets transported all over the world, blah, blah, blah. We get sued. Then they pass this law that says we're immune from lawsuits. In other words, I'm going like, really? Okay. No, well, not really, okay, because here's the problem that we face that other media may not face. We beam in 122 countries. And when we were talking to our friends in India, they go, that might be true in the United States, but not in India. Or we're talking to our friends in Pakistan, maybe true in the United States, but not in Pakistan. So our problem is a little bit more unique in that we go to all these other different countries and we beam in and we have to abide by their terms and conditions. But the United States is a big market, and they just made media exempt. In other words, like, and I'm sitting there just going, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't think they thought it all the way through, because when this first got started, I think the idea was it was going to be free speech, an open platform.
Yeah.
And given that fact, some people were going to say things, that were inappropriate. Okay. And you didn't want the sponsor of the platform to be held liable because all right. But that's understandable. Okay.
Yeah.
At the same point in time, I think those sponsors need to have some effort to try to be able to make sure that people aren't doing things that are incendiary.
Right.
What they've done now is they've gone beyond that. Now they're deciding who's going to be on and who's not going to be on, and that they should not have protection for.
Right. And we invited the attorney. We've talked to the attorney at Parlay, or whatever they call it. Okay, Parlay. Yeah, we've talked to the attorney several times to invite him and the CEO of Parler on the IBM TV network. They're looking at it right now to get on. But then apparently the CEO had death threats, like no kidding, and went into hiding. And I'm not sure who would threaten him. And for those in the audience who are not familiar with Parler, is that it's actually an open media source. I actually joined it because I got shut out doing this show from Facebook and YouTube several times. In other words, I call them the Facebook police. They go, oh, you beamed this to too many of our things, blank, we're going to shut you down for a month. Okay, then YouTube. In other words, I experienced the Facebook police and the YouTube, and I'm not doing anything except redistributing IBM TV content. Okay, and so I said, why am I joining Parler? Because they said they're not going to do this. And I thought, okay, good. A platform I can join, which also 30 million other Americans join. And then all of a sudden, AWS shut them down. Bang. Because they didn't like what they were doing. And I sat there, fell out of my chair. I was going, are you serious? Free speech does not exist in the United States anymore. I mean, I'm flabbergasted. And I'm also shocked that they have such power that AWS, by the way, as Amazon Web Services, can do like this and shut down a media. And speaking of which, I'm going to be moving over to another channel in just a moment. So Kim, you're going to take over.
I know Nick has to leave, but I want to bring up another awareness that just recently became aware to us this morning, that somebody got shot down because they're trying to do good things for America. They have been very supportive of a lot of good things for their community. And she's very dear and near to me. She's one of the NFL Sisters in Service. We hosted a huge MLK event for children last year. It was called NFL Chess. We had a lot of NFL players come and teach children how to play chess, but also teach them important life skills. And she was shot at just recently. Her car was hit 3 times, and it's all because of her going up against a certain person in political elements and, just trying to make a change for the better good. And they're trying to make her have fear and stand down. So there are a lot of things going on right now, censorships, people instilling fear in people. What happened at the Capitol, that's just people trying to instill fear. And I think, on this day of MLK Day, moving forward with his legacy, hopefully we'll start leading our patriotism with heart and not hate. And hopefully our president will extend the olive branch to those who have all this hate in their heart and ask them, what do you really want and need for us to fix? And let's cooperate and compromise. And
MLK was a great person, and he had the right idea. He wanted change through peaceful protest. He abhorred violence. And you know, what happened on January 6th at the Capitol of the United States was outrageous and unacceptable, and people who violated the law should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. At the same point in time, I live 8 miles from the Capitol. I can see the Capitol dome from my front yard, okay? We have 24,000 troops in Washington, D.C., and more coming, which I think is outrageous. You know, government didn't do enough the first time. It's way overkill now. That is not a good image for the United States. January 6th wasn't. This is not either. We will have a peaceful transition of power, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to bring this country together. It's more divided now than I've seen it in my lifetime and maybe since the Civil War. But there are ways forward, and it's important that we pursue those ways. And Martin Luther King would want us to do that.
And thank you so much. And we're going to have to say goodbye, and we'll see you next week on Economic Monday, where we are trying to close that gap between poverty and sustainability and end world hunger, but just make things better for the world today. And again, we thank all of you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Any final words, anyone, while I pull up Nick's? There we go. Have a great day.